time for the Property Podcast, where every week tens of thousands of property investors, new and experienced, join together to get news, knowledge and laughs at our expense. With me, Rob Bence.
And me, Rob Dix. Join us every Thursday morning for your weekly dose of property ideas and motivation. Then head over to our website at thepropertypodcast.com to keep the conversation going. Now though, let's get started.
Welcome to the Property Podcast. It is episode 55. It's the last in our series of business interviews. Rob, it's been an emotional journey.
It has. I've really enjoyed it. I hope if you've been listening to them all, you've enjoyed it as well. I think it's just been great for me to reinforce the point that there is so much from it that we can take and apply to property, and just having that kind of business mindset can really propel you forward. And it's been nice to have some of our esteemed guests reinforcing things that we've been saying for a year now. So it's nice to show that it's not just us banging on about a load of rubbish.
Yeah, it's been really nice. There's some lessons that seem to be universal and everyone talks about in one way or another. They may phrase it differently, but there seems to be solid themes throughout, like taking action, building your network up, working with people who are more experienced than yourself. Value your time. There seems to be a certain theme that's woven between all the episodes, which is really interesting. So it's nice that we talk about some of these themes as well in the podcast and relate them back to property, but it's great to see that these esteemed business people are implementing the same type of things in their lives. So I think it's great if you're doing that already. This is just positive reinforcement that to carry on, keep pushing.
Yeah, definitely. So this week for our final interview, our guest is Peter Shankman. So the URL for this episode, if you want to go and look at the show notes, it's thepropertyhub.net/Shankman. If you haven't heard of Peter Shankman, he is the founder of a service you might have heard of called Help a Reporter Out, or HARO, which is just a huge free service that allows journalists to get leads from ordinary people who know things. So if they're doing a story about something and they need a source, they can put out an appeal to anyone who might know about it and have credentials in that area. And then for the person who knows about it, they can get free publicity by providing an answer or an interview or whatever. So basically, it's just a service that allows people to be helpful towards each other and generates a lot of free publicity. And even though Peter has now sold that company, and he sold it for a lot of money, those principles underpin everything that he does now. So his new book is called Nice Companies Finished First. And so we talked to him in the interview about how being helpful and connecting with people can be really useful for corporations and as for you as an individual in your business life and your normal life. So that is all coming up in the interview in just a minute.
Yeah, this is a real passion subject for Rob and I. This is something we really, really buy into, that being helpful and guiding people and sort of thinking of others first when you engage in a conversation, not trying to think, how can I turn this into benefiting me? All these things Peter's going to cover. I'm in the middle of reading his book and I highly recommend it. It's very, very good. That's Nice Companies Finished First. We'll link to it in the show notes. But Rob, just a couple of announcements before we jump into this interview. The first, we have our winner of our Northern Meetup location, and I promise I've not rigged this.
I did notice a suspicious number of votes coming from your neck of the woods. Are you sure?
I'm positive. I don't live in Liverpool anymore, so if the servers are all in Liverpool, it's not my doing.
Yeah, so Liverpool was the winner. Manchester, a respectable second place. No one else really got a look in, really, did they?
No, it was Liverpool or Manchester. It was close, but then there was a surge for Liverpool. So I look forward to go home. My mum will be happy because that means I'll have to pop in and see her. So otherwise I'll be in big trouble. But I'm looking forward to going back home, meeting everybody up north who can make it. We'll give you the date next week, but it's going to be in April and it's going to be in Liverpool. And we will come to you with the date next week, which we have a special episode to get us back into the property swing, Rob.
Yeah, we do. So next week it is listener questions, part 3, maybe? I can't remember how many of these episodes we've done before, but they're always popular. We've had questions coming in. We've been collecting them up from emails and from voicemails and this kind of thing. We've got loads of questions to get through. And so it's going to be great to get back to property by blasting through lots of the things that you want to know. But if there is something that you want to know, it's not too late. you can still submit your question. The way to make sure that it gets on the show is to send it to us in the form of a voicemail, because we like to have other people's voices. We're not sick of it after these 5 episodes. So if you send us a voicemail, you're far more likely to have your question featured. So to do that, just go to thepropertyhub.net/podcast. And you'll see a link on the right-hand side to leave us a voicemail. All you have to do is talk the message into your computer. You can re-record it if you mess it up. That'll come straight over to us, and we'll be able to answer that in next week's episode. So that's going to be a really, really good one. And also, importantly, the return of Resource of the Week. If you've been missing that, I know it's a popular segment. If you've been missing that for the last month or so, that will make its return as well.
Super. Okay, well, Rob, should we get to the interview? And I have to say, I didn't make it to this one, so I've listened back to it since, but I had internet issues. Who knew? I was in the UK, you were in Thailand, and I was the one with internet issues. So, Rob, let's listen to how you got on.
Peter, it's so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Glad to be here. This should be fun.
In fact, to start it off on a fun note, this isn't really relevant to anything else we're going to talk about, but you've got to start off by telling our audience the Titanic T-shirt story, because I think it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Back in 1998, I had very little money, and I was trying to create a new company. It was the summer of 98, and Titanic was coming out on video. And I had, everywhere you looked, you saw signs to buy Titanic on video, get it here. I had this idea that there were better ways to do that. I took my rent money, and I had 500 T-shirts printed up that read, "It sank, get over it." And I went into Times Square, and I figured if I could sell 180, I'd make my money back. It was my rent money. I sold 506 hours. I made $5,000. I leaked the story to USA Today. It ran all over the world. I think I made about like $100,000 or something in revenue from that. It was a pretty crazy story.
Wow. I just really wanted to tell you that, because I think that gives a flavor of what you've been doing for the last, decade or more just so well. But your most recent book is called Nice Companies Finish First. The obvious question from that is, just for the sake of the book, how do you define nice?
Well, nice simply is a movement. You know, the concept of nice, a lot of businesses think we can't be nice because if we're nice, we'll get taken advantage of. And, you know, I'm sort of here to tell you that when you're nice, that doesn't necessarily mean being taken advantage of. Being nice actually lends itself to more successful businesses, because you have the ability to, by being nice, you know, look, we expect to be treated like crap in our businesses. You know, in our dealings with companies, we expect to primarily be treated like crap. It doesn't matter how loyal we've been. It doesn't matter what we've done. We expect to be treated like crap. And a great example of that, I can relate this back to real estate for you. I lived in a building in Manhattan. I rented an apartment for about 7 years called the Helena. I was one of the first tenants into the building. I was actually the first tenant on my floor for like 6 months. They had no windows in the other apartments. The wind used to burst through the hallway at night. And I was their best tenant. I mean, I was there for 7 years. Now, I never missed a rent payment. I was always on time. I was always happy. I brought in like 7 or 8 other renters. I wound up buying a place, and I had 6 months left on my lease. So I gave the lease to a friend. I told management I was doing this. I'm like, hey, you know, I'm just going to, it'll still be under my name. She's just going to live here and she'll pay me. At the end of those 6 months, she said, you know, I'd love to move in here on my own. So she submitted all the paperwork. She did everything. Well, P.S., she was missing, I think, one document or something, because the reason she had to live in my place, the place she was in was burned to the ground. It was in a fire. The landlord was like convicted of arson or something. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, the landlord's in jail. He couldn't sign the paperwork that said she lived there. My building said, sorry, without that paperwork, we can't rent you the apartment. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, guys, number one, she came recommended for me. I've been there for 7 years. Number two, she's been here for the past 6 months without a problem. You've got to learn when to bend the rules. And they didn't. So P.S., she didn't wind up moving in. I wrote a scathing blog post about how they ruined a 7-year relationship. And they did it because, oh, well, it's policy. Well, policy just screws you out of a really, really good customer, you know, a really good tenant who would have paid on time. And by the way, policy also screwed you out of a 7-year tenant who has a bit of a following, who would have continued to recommend people to you and will no longer do that.
So that's what in the UK we would call a computer says no attitude, where people just blindly apply the rules without any real thought behind it.
That's exactly what it is. You know, it's the concept of, oh, well, we do this because that's the way it's always been done, or whatever the case. You know, it's time to make those changes. And if you can't make those changes, it's going to screw you in the long run. And it's not that difficult. Essentially, you need to start learning how to apply common sense.
So I get the sense that being nice isn't something that you figured out worked in business, so you started doing it. It sounds like it's something that you naturally did, and then you spotted that it worked in the business world as well. Can you give an example of where it's worked out for you on a personal level?
I mean, just the basic concept of being nice. I always take the first meeting. I always invite people to email me to, if they want to meet for coffee, I'm happy to listen to ideas. Well, I can't tell you how many times that's turned into people months, years down the road saying, hey, you know what? You were really nice and you met with me when I needed it. Well, now I have this project and I'd like to hire you for it. Or, Peter, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine who's putting together a bid for a $300,000 project that I think you'd be perfect for. I've always remembered how great you were when I asked for help several years ago. Help is the greatest and most underrated thing in the world. Self-promotion, the concept of, hey, look at how awesome I am is horrible. But when self-promotion is done well, it's not self-promotion, it becomes help. And help is spectacular, because help is something that everyone wants.
I think you referred to it as a puppy wrapped in bacon. I saw you mention it somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is an evocative way of describing it, but I think it's spot on. Most people don't do that. Right? Most people kind of do exactly the same thing as everyone else. And so it doesn't take much to stand out and be a little bit better than the rest and have opportunities come your way as a result of that. So have you got any examples of little things that you do that may have made a difference and that our listeners might want to copy?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's simple things. Listening. We talk so much more than we listen. That's a mistake. We need to listen more than we talk. To be able to hear what people really need and really want, and go after that is tremendous. And the value in that is tremendous. The problem is that people tend to use listening as an excuse to wait for the person to finish talking so they can start talking. Listening is really, really beneficial. So I'm a huge fan of listening.
So in a way, it sounds like being nice, what it boils down to is making life easy for the other person and giving them what they want, which is the opposite of what most people do, where most people are just trying to force through the agenda. Exactly.
The benefit of that is that you wind up making tremendous value in that because people go, wow, he really wanted to help me. I'm going to get... So, being nice is great karmically and all that, but God, don't for a second think there's not a ton of money in that.
What's a corporate level, a bigger example of this?
Well, look at any airline. The last time you got upgraded, right? Instead of getting the usual anal probe from the TSA and then, sitting in seat 34 bathroom and, you're lucky if you get a water, let alone a blanket, all of a sudden you have the ability you're nice or someone upgrades you or they even just say good morning. You're like, wow, that was really nice. You wind up talking to the world about how great you are. You tell everyone else, wow, I just had this great flight with this great airline. I'd totally fly them. Who does that? Again, we expect to be treated like crap. The little bit better is all it takes.
And then something else that I know that you do is you like to keep top of mind with people. You like to be remembered and you never know what opportunities will come your way as part of that. So you automate that in some quite cool ways, don't you?
I think that the concept of top of mind is beneficial. A guy named Barry Diller, he was the head of Paramount Pictures. He took over Paramount when they were horrible. He would call 10 people in his Rolodex every day just to say good morning. And over the course of 7 years doing that, turned Paramount into the first billion-dollar production company, or Hollywood studio. He listened, he reacted. He didn't call them to try and sell them anything. He just called them to say hi. And that is the most incredible thing. Hi, how are you? What can I help you with? And from that, he got Beverly Hills Cop, Flashdance, Footloose. I mean, there is a real value in being nice.
You apply that, you use what? Use Google Alerts to kind of keep track of what people are up to and things?
I use Google Alerts and I use something called Newsel. Newsel's great. It lets me track people specifically in my network. News.me shows me what people in my network specifically are talking about. Yeah, never underestimate the ability of a good bunch of programs.
And you use IFT as well, is that right?
Yes, if this then that. I love that. Love if this then that.
How does that work?
For me, I use it for things like anytime someone gets a new LinkedIn campaign. Anytime someone gets a new job, I get an automatic update. And that way I get it before lots of other people. And it looks like I've been following there, but it's not creepy. And it's a nice way to say, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I can do for you, blah, blah, blah.
So you're the first guy to say, hey, congratulations.
Exactly.
But do you find that people ever react weirdly to you when you're being just nice? Because it is unexpected. You're not used to people just calling you up to say good morning or whatever. Or, you'll meet people at 6 a.m. or whatever, and you'll just kind of take meetings with random people. But do you get weird reactions to that? Because it's highly unusual.
I was joking this morning. I was waiting for the subway. And the subway came at 42nd Street. And as people were getting off the subway before I got on, I just said, good morning. Welcome to Times Square. And look, I'd be lying if I said I didn't do it because I knew it would freak people out. It was fun. But, it's fun to be nice. Every once in a while, you'll get someone who will hear you and they'll laugh. And, hey, you've made someone's day better.
And you also talk about transparency a lot. Have you had benefits on a personal level from being transparent about your motives?
I am a believer that transparency has to rule the day. You tell people what you want. You tell people what you're looking for. I saw a great quote once that said, go after what you want and work hard to get it. There's nothing wrong with that. And I really believe that. So if the way I work hard to get what I want is to be nice to people and get it from there, my philosophy in life is really just to be good to people. From that, you get a great amount back. I hate to get all new agey and stuff, but it really is about what you put out into the universe.
And then for companies as well, would you say that transparency is becoming kind of a requirement because it's hard to keep things quiet now?
It is. I mean, the ability to lie is gone. There is no ability to lie anymore. You just can't do it. To be able to simply tell the truth. Look, I have a wife, and I find it a lot easier to tell the truth because I will get caught in. If I lie, I'm just going to get screwed. It's going to come back to bite me in the ass. It's just easier to be honest.
Have you got any examples from the book of transparency working out for companies?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, if you remember, my favorite example is Elliot Spitzer versus Anthony Weiner. Elliot Spitzer announced what he did. He was gone. You couldn't find him. He admitted it, moved on, life went on. He now has his own show. He'll be back in public office. Anthony Weiner will be lucky to be the most popular history professor at the University of Akron. He could have simply come out and said, hey, I screwed up. I was trying to have sexy time with my wife. I didn't know what I was doing. Instead, he screwed up. He just wound up completely ruined. I mean, this guy was supposed to be the next mayor. He would have been the next mayor. And he blew it. All he had to do was be honest, and he decided not to. So, yeah, there's no question about it.
So if you say, oh, yeah, I screwed up, and you admit it, then there's kind of nothing else to say after that, apart from, oh, fair enough. Like I
screwed up. I'm going to try to make it better, and I won't do it again.
I don't want to keep you any longer, but before you go, if someone's listening and they want to get access to people who might be able to help them out in their careers, they want to reach out to people, they want to get noticed, what tips would you use? Because you're good at getting things noticed, and you've said that it doesn't take much to stand out. You just need to be a little bit better than everyone else. So what would be your top tips for if someone's getting 50 unsolicited emails a day or requests for meetings or whatever else? How do you be the one that stands out?
Reach out to them and just say, what can I do for you? Not what do I need from you, but what can I do for you? That's number one. I think the second thing is to simply go and say, okay, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm trying to help. Here's how I'd love to be able to work with you. Whatever it is, be honest, be transparent, and tell them what you want. And then at the end of the day, what you're looking for is you want people, when they think of the help they need, you want them to think of you. And it's really not that hard. That's the beauty of this thing, is none of this is rocket science.
So it's a combination of three things right there. So you're being helpful without expecting anything. You're letting it be known what you want. And if you're pinging them and being top of mind, then when an opportunity comes their way that might be relevant, they know what you want and you're the helpful guy.
Exactly. And you're the one they think of first. And that's what matters the most.
Awesome. Well, Peter, it's been really great having you on the show. Thank you so much. If people want to keep up with what you've got going on, how can they find you?
They can find me at peter@shankman.com. On Facebook, I'm facebook.com/Peter Shankman, twitter.com/Peter Shankman. And my website is just shankman.com. And assuming I'm not being arrested for running too early in Central Park again, I usually respond to emails within 5 minutes of getting them.
I'll link to that story so listeners know what that's about when this goes out. And hopefully there'll be a good update by the time this airs as well, and you'll have your victory.
Indeed. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
All righty.
So I really enjoyed that chat. If you want to get hold of any of the links that Peter mentioned, including the link to his book, the show notes are at thepropertyhub.net/Shankman. But Rob, you missed out. What did you make of it listening back?
Well, first of all, it's nice to be nice. I mean, that's the minimum we can take away from this. But there's lots of other lessons in there. I particularly like the story where he made $100,000 from a t-shirt. That's a big sum of money, $100,000 from a t-shirt. And he really just took a chance and worked hard, or as the Americans like to say, hustling. I think that in its own, just taking action, moving on an idea and working hard with it, produced massive results. And that's a t-shirt. How many people sell t-shirts? But he was switched on. He put the effort in and he made some serious money from that. He shows he's definitely an entrepreneur. He wasn't just a one-trick pony. Yeah, exactly. I really wanted him to start with that story because I've heard him tell that story before. It's just like, wow, that really does sum up
what he's all about and laid the foundations for so many things that he's done since. But I also enjoyed what he was talking about in terms of companies. He was talking about how part of being nice, his definition, is being sensitive about what the other person wants and having a degree of flexibility. And he's saying that these days, inflexible companies really lose out. People want a lot more choice. There are so many more options. People aren't just going to settle for something that's not perfect. And he gave an example of a flat where he was a great tenant. He got other people into the building. He did everything that you could ever want a tenant to do. And then the management company were massively unhelpful. And so I just thought that was interesting. And they ended up losing out because he moved out. So I think that that's an interesting thing that we can take away, not just for companies, but for ourselves as well, just about making life easier for other people and not just rigidly applying rules. I'm sure you come across this a lot, as I do, companies and individuals just who want things done a certain way and they're not going to bend, even if it makes no sense, even if it makes no difference for them and it makes your life easier, they still won't budge. So I thought it was really nice to get a concrete example from him, and a property one at that, of how that applies.
I thought that was brilliant. One of the standout quotes for me is when he said, "Help is a rare commodity." And it is. It's funny. You wouldn't think that would be the way, but actually help is a rare commodity in business and in the property business as well. So by just taking a simple act like helping someone can make you as an investor, as a business owner, as a landlord, however you like to set yourself up, stand out from the crowd. A simple thing to do, but super, super effective.
Yeah, definitely. And related to that, he was sort of saying how self-promotion can be helpful. What was his quote? It's sort of self-promoting while helping someone is a puppy wrapped in bacon, which I think is great. We've talked about this in the past as well. Like, self-promoting doesn't have to be like, someone who corners you at a networking meeting and like backs you into a corner going on about how great they are. That kind of thing just doesn't work anymore. If you can put yourself across in a good light and help someone else out at the same time, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. When he talks about the 3 things to get noticed, I know you and I completely will agree with this. 1, offer help without strings attached. 2, be open about what you want. And 3, stay top of mind. Again, what Peter Shankman talks about, it's not rocket science, but so many people fail to implement the simple things. So by just offering help without an agenda, being open about what you want and staying top of mind will help you, be noticed in whatever you're doing, whether that's as an investor, a business owner, in your work. You can apply that lesson to many aspects of life, not just business.
Yeah, and I've got countless examples of where that's worked out for me by helping someone out, but also not making a secret of what I wanted to get out of it. It just worked out in everyone's best interests. Although it seems like a soft subject and you don't normally think of hard-nosed property investors being interested in this kind of thing. You often think about property as being a numbers game and everything else. But hopefully from this interview, and, it's been a theme in the previous conversations we've had as well, like being nice, thoughtful, helpful, all that kind of thing can be beneficial and is beneficial. We know this to be true. So I'm glad that this was our final guest interview so we can end on this note, because I do think it's really important and it doesn't get talked about enough.
I agree. Yeah, this was a great episode. Thank you to Peter Shankman for being involved in it. Thank you for ending up a series as well. It's been brilliant, Rob. I know we talked about the top of the show, but it's been such a joy to interview these people. I hope everyone listening has enjoyed it as much as we have, because it's been an absolute pleasure for us. And so is running the podcast for the last year. And we're definitely going to do another year, that's for sure, because we're just enjoying it so much. So thank you to everyone who's been with us for the first year. Here's to the second year. But next week, Rob, we're back on track. We're back on property, and we've got our listeners' questions. And we are going to be talking about our fantastic bloggers we've got over at the Hub.
Yeah, the Property Hub. I mean, that's full of people being nice and super helpful and friendly and everything else. I'm so pleased with what we're building over there. And one thing that we've implemented over the last few weeks since these guest episodes started is having some guest bloggers coming in to flesh out those areas that are maybe something that we don't know a lot about. They're highly specialized. We just don't have the knowledge, or just to give a different take on things, because, it shouldn't just be about our view all the time. There's often no right or wrong. So we've had some really great posts already. We're really proud of the caliber of the posters we've got in there. So we'll be talking about that more next week as well. But in the meantime, if you go to thepropertyhub.net/blog, you can see what's been going on so far.
So next week, Episode 56, listener questions. Remember, go to the website, leave us a recording, or drop a message in the Property Hub if you'd like us to answer a specific question. But recordings are very much welcome because we love playing your voices back on the show. We'll answer all the questions that come in next week. But until then, have a fantastic week, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to The Property Podcast. Make sure you join our mailing list at thepropertypodcast.com.
And remember, we love 5-star reviews. Rob even loves them more than air miles.